It's interesting to make a film about Hitchcock because not only was he the most famous director, but he's probably the most visible director for many of us.
Yes. Yes.
And so the audience brings a certain idea. Well, I'm familiar with this person because I've seen them on screen, mostly from the TV work, although his little bits in every film, his appearance. But do we really know him? I mean, to what extent was he being himself on those introductions to the TV show? And to what extent was he, really putting on the Hitchcock character?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. I think that, there's the public face of Hitchcock, the Joker, the wry, eye-raising, Anglo-American. And so there's all that, when he's doing something like quite scary, that also might be a little joke in there. So there's that. And then, when the Europeans discovered Hitchcock in the 50s and 60s, the French discovered somebody who they thought was much more serious and moral, religious. They felt they were in meeting a very Catholic filmmaker. And of course, he had this famous Jesuit upbringing. But I would say that I would personally argue that there are other Hitchcocks. Not enough has really been talked about Hitchcock, the family man, the husband, his famous wife, Alma, who was a great collaborator, and his daughter, Patricia, wrote a very good book recently on him. And I read that book when I was making this. And this opened up, talking about how much Hitchcock loved gardening and dinner parties, and inviting friends over for the weekend. So there's a more human side of Hitchcock that wasn't so much part of the publicity machine and the way he marketed himself.
And then so then your challenge as you're making this film, which has Hitchcock speaking to us, is who am I presenting? The person that the audience expects, to be speaking to them, or am I, giving them the real Hitchcock?
In a film like this, you want to visit some of the most pleasurable moments in Hitchcock, but you really want to move the conversation on a little bit and get to other themes, the road not taken about Hitchcock. I certainly didn't want to just repeat stuff that people knew, and that's why we go into unusual themes, or we see scenes that are perhaps less famous, or I tried to connect some things. I'm like many of us, a Hitchcock obsessive, so I've read all the books that I can read on the subject, but I wanted to say, what else is there to say? And hopefully I got some other things to say.
Yeah.